President Vladimir Putin has declared Special Operations Forces Day in Russia will now be marked annually on February the 27th. No official reason for the Russian leader signing the decree has been given. However, the new holiday, originally celebrated in May, coincides with last year's seizure of the regional parliament in Ukraine's Crimea Peninsula. On February the 27th, dozens of then unidentified men, sporting camouflage and weapons, but without insignia, began storming government buildings. It was these men who later the Kremlin confessed were regular Russian soldiers. But Moscow didn't immediately admit Russian troops were involved in the operation to seize Ukraine's Black Sea Peninsula. On March the 4th, a week after the parliament building in Simferopol was seized, Putin told journalists that the men were just local defense units who could have got their equipment from the local stores. 2 weeks later, and a different story. As piles of evidence mounted that Russian forces were active in Crimea, Putin was forced to confess that this was in fact true, but done in order to protect Russian speakers in the peninsula. It was a story that would soon play out in Ukraine's eastern regions of Donetsk and Luhansk. In the weeks following the takeover of the regional parliament, Russian special forces, which became dubbed as Little Green Men, took over airports, military bases and regional media companies. Supporters for a united Ukraine protested, but the clampdown on these events began soon after. Then a referendum was organised, one without credible election observers, but observed by armed Russian soldiers, with voters posting their ballots under the barrel of a gun. The region's indigenous Muslim Tatars and supporters of Ukrainian unity boycotted the vote. The UN General Assembly passed a non-binding resolution later in the month, declaring the Moscow-backed ballot invalid. Militant figurehead Igor Girkin admitted earlier this year that his troops had forced local deputies to vote in favour of annexation from Crimea, which had no local support. Following the sham referendum, the Russian government handed out medals to former Ukrainians dated from February the 20th, 2014, exposing the Kremlin's lies again on when the invasion of Crimea actually began.